Khabib retired years ago, but somehow he keeps winning. And it is not because he's in the cage, it is because he's in people's lives. Every time you see Islam Makhachev step into that octagon, you are not just seeing a fighter, you're actually seeing a brother shaped by the years of guidance, discipline, and real love, or the kind of love that Muslim brotherhood actually wishes they had. And this week, that brother became a double champion, having two belts from two different divisions. This is one legacy that actually started long before the cameras ever showed up. And so the real question isn't how Islam Makhachev won. The question is how Khabib keeps winning even after retirement. Of course, this is news roundup with Abdul, and although it is just one story, we have to talk about it. And if you are not a member of this channel yet, consider subscribing to the channel, and let's begin the video. Khabib's story didn't start in the UFC. It didn't start with fame, money, or even millions of followers on social media. It began in a very small village in Dagestan, in a house built beside a wrestling gym, with a father who had a dream bigger than the mountains surrounding them. Now, his father's name is Nurmagomedov, and he didn't just train fighters, he actually trained men who feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not the spotlight, men who understood discipline long before they understood what success meant. And later Khabib, he was just one of the many boys on the mat, nothing special, nothing guaranteed, but his father saw something in him, a fire in him, a mindset, a spirit that actually refused to break. And that's the part people actually forget, that Khabib wasn't born a champion, he was made into a champion. Years of training in the snow, running up the mountains, wrestling grown men before he was a teenager, and this was the foundation the world didn't actually see. There was no shortcut, no excuses, just a discipline and a constant reminder from his father, which he said, if you don't work hard, someone else will, and they will beat you.
Honestly, we feel great. We are so happy. We made history, and we keep improving. Every fight.
And he carried those words all the way to the UFC, all the way through 29 straight wins and never lost a fight, and all the way to becoming one of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport.
Что, какие мысли были в третьем раунде?
Никаких не было.
Дурак, что ли? В смысле не было мысли? Ну какие-то мысли посещали же во время боя?
But then came the moment that shook the world. After defeating Justin, Khabib dropped to his knees in tears, and the world watched a man who looked unbreakable finally break. It wasn't actually the fight, it wasn't the pressure, it was the loss of his father, the man who actually built him, guided him, and also shaped him. And in that moment, Khabib made a decision that most champions would never make. He walked away, undefeated, on top, without any hesitation, because his mother asked him to walk out. And Khabib always said, a man who cannot respect his parents can never be successful. And so he chose family over fame, he chose peace over applause, and he chose Islam over ego. And that decision, that particular decision, that one moment of obedience would change the history of the MMA forever. Now, most fighters retired and they disappeared, but Khabib retired and somehow became more influential than the others. He stepped into the coaching role that his father once held, not because he wanted power, but because he wanted to continue his father's vision, that is, to create champions, not just in the cage, but in life.
Hey, listen, 34, 32, this is still 90 degrees, bro.
And one of the closest souls to him, that is Khabib, is a quiet, humble young man who trained beside his father for many years. And that person is Islam Makhachev. To the world, Islam was just another Dagestani fighter, but to Khabib, Islam was a family, a brother, a student of his father's methods, and a man who had the same discipline, the same humility, and the same fire. So Khabib didn't just coach him, he actually lifted him, he protected him, he corrected him, and he pushed him every single day. Not just physically, but spiritually as well. And when Islam won the lightweight title, people said, okay, maybe he is good. But when he actually defended the title, that is when he dominated, when he carried himself with the same discipline and calmness as Khabib did years ago. People then realized something, that this wasn't a coincidence. This was actually a system built by Abdul Manap, perfected by Khabib, and carried forward by Islam Makhachev. But what happened this week, what happened at the UFC 322 took that legacy to a different level. Islam Makhachev walked into the octagon carrying not just his own dreams, but the dreams of a father no longer here and the guidance of a brother who actually promised to continue that dream of the father. And he fought like a man who has something to protect, something to honor, something so sacred. And when the referee actually raised his hand, and when the second belt was actually wrapped around his waist, when the cameras also caught Khabib smiling, emotional and also proud, the world actually realized the truth that Khabib didn't retire, he evolved, and through Islam Makhachev, he keeps winning. So this wasn't just Islam becoming a double champion. This was the legacy of Dagestan reaching its peak. This was Abdul Manap's dream being fulfilled. This was Khabib's promise being kept. A promise that he would build champions with discipline, with faith, with brotherhood, and with the mindset that success means nothing if you lose your soul.
And I'm here with Hezbollah celebrating, all day. We don't eat almost nothing. Now is our time to enjoy. Now so many cameras, so many people, we a little bit tired. Now let Islam rest and let us enjoy with our beautiful pizza, right?
But here's the part of Khabib's story almost nobody talks about. Even while building champions in Dagestan, even while guiding his brothers to war titles, Khabib's heart has always been somewhere else too, that is, in Palestine. In one interview, Khabib spoke with calmness that shook people. He said one of his biggest dreams, something that he actually wants to achieve before he leaves this world, is to build a gym in Palestine. That is a place where young boys can train, grow, and feel hope in a land where hope is hard to find. And then he said something even more powerful. That is, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him the chance, he is going to raise champions in Palestine and he is going to lift their name up high.
One of my dreams in this life, and I have dreamed when they're gonna have their own country, they build beautiful airport in Gaza, can you imagine? And I open there my school. I bring coaches because they are very happy. I bring yes, bring some good, very good coaches and train them. I believe so many tough athletes can come from them, and they're gonna represent the beautiful country around the world.
And so think about that. A man who already conquered the world, a man who could actually live a quiet, comfortable life, still thinks about the oppressed, still dreams for them, still wants to uplift their name. While he's winning in Dagestan, while his team is becoming a dynasty, his heart still aches for the Ummah. And this is why people actually love Khabib. Not just because he's a great fighter, but because he's a great Muslim, a man who actually remembers the forgotten, a man who actually wants to give strength to those who have none, a man who actually carries the Ummah wherever he goes. He's a champion in the cage, of course, but even more than that, he's a champion outside of the cave. And this is where the story of Khabib and Islam Makhachev becomes bigger than the MMA. Because it teaches us something every Muslim needs to hear, that you don't need to be in the spotlight to actually keep winning. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses the people around you because of your presence, then you are already a champion. Khabib isn't winning in the octagon anymore. He's winning in people's heart. He's winning in the lives he touches. He's winning because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts barakah in the actions of those who act sincerely. And Islam Makhachev becoming a double champion, that is not just sports achievement, that is the result of brotherhood, mentorship, discipline, prayer, and a system built on Islamic values. Because the truth is, not all of us will become fighters or champions, but every one of us can actually build a legacy that is kind of like that of Habib's. We just have to do the following. That is, first, we have to choose the right people. So we have to surround ourselves with brothers and sisters who want to see us succeed in this dunya and in the hereafter. The second, we have to stay disciplined. Nothing changes if we don't change. Discipline actually beats motivation every single day and time. The third is you have to honor your parent, and this is the secret ingredient in Habib's entire story. A brother actually enters the life of the one who actually obeys and respects their parent. The very final one is dream beyond yourself. Khabib isn't just dreaming for Dagestan alone, he is almost dreaming for Palestine. He is dreaming for the Ummah, and that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to raise him. 5, lift others. So women don't actually compete with their brothers, they lift them and then they guide them. They protect them just like Khabib did for Islam Makhachev. Now, if you apply these 5 principles, you don't need a belt to be a winner. Your life itself becomes a victory. So when people say, why does Khabib keep winning even after retirement? The answer is actually simple. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises the people who raise others. Because true champions don't stop fighting. They just start teaching. And some legacies are bigger than the man. And Khabib's legacy is actually one of them. The 2 belts of Islam Makhachev aren't just his. They are for Abdul Manap, they are for Khabib, they are for Dagestan, and they are for the Ummah. And as long as men like Khabib keep guiding and men like Islam keep thriving, the eagle will keep striking again and again and again. That is it for today. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, like and share, and I'll see you in the next video next week. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.